Okay.
Okay. Youth in the juvenile system and juvenile justice system. Okay. All right. Okay. So obviously, the juvenile court hasn't always been a thing. So the juvenile justice system just started in 1899 and it was first established in Cook County, Illinois. Before this time, youth were tried as adults, which was pretty bad just because, as we know, youth have different capacity for change, and people saw that in 1899, and they were recognized as less blameworthy and having a greater capacity for change. And then by 1920s, each state had established a form of their own criminal justice system for youth, um, and it was called the juvenile justice system. But then, up until 1967, there was little to no due process for these juveniles that were going through these systems. And so things were really under the table. A lot of it was just like stern talking tos in court, but it could range depending on the biases that's happening in the courts. And so in 1967, the U.S. Supreme Court, in Ray Galt, ruled in favor of making sure that everyone had due process, just like in the adult systems. And then after this shift, there was a really big increase in juvenile crime rates, which led to tough on crime movement. And this was really, really bad because, I mean, it was good because it decreased crime rates, but it was bad because a lot of it pushed for policies that tried youth as adults, which is kind of what against what we were going for. And so a lot of the juveniles in these systems were getting tried as adults and then getting punishments, and getting even death penalties and life term sentences in prison. And then since the 90s, crime rates have dropped because of the harsh policies that are still in place. But the main goal of the juvenile system remains the same, to focus on rehabilitation.
So these graphs just show a little on the demographics of the juvenile criminal system. So on the left, we have some racial demographics. It shows that by race and ethnicity, the highest rates of juvenile incarceration are among Black and tribal populations, and then lowest among Latino, white, and Asian populations. And then on the right, we have just youth arrest rates in the US from 1980 to 2020. And as was mentioned earlier, these incarceration rates have dropped. And you can see that rates are lower in 2020 than they were in 1980. And then this graph shows rates of juvenile incarceration when it comes to the different states. So we can see the US average is 74 per 100,000 youth. And then you can see that states like Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Hawaii, and Maine all have really low rates. And then the highest rates are among the states of Wyoming, West Virginia, Alaska, Oregon, and states like those. So we can see that there is a wide range of difference among all the different states.
And this is Molly's story. In May of 2020, Molly approved a plea deal that put her 15-year-old son into juvenile detention for 2 years when he was arrested for a fight he had. And she said, "My back was against the wall. I'm a single mom. I had no money for a lawyer. The court said if I wouldn't agree to the plea, he's going to be tried as an adult, 15 to 55 years. I sat him down in the courtroom that day and said, 'This is what I gotta do. I have to save your life. You have to go into custody.'" So this is a typical experience where involved parents often experience the pain of exclusion from decisions that shape their child's life once the juvenile legal system steps in. And Molly was an involved parent, and she knew that what her son needed when he got in trouble, he needed healing and counseling and anger management. But in state custody, even with the goal of rehabilitation, her son wasn't going to get those services that he needed. He would not be able to go to school or get mental health treatment. And for the first 6 months of his 2 year period, he wasn't allowed out of his cell more than 15 minutes a day.
Okay, so obviously the goal for parents is to prevent their child getting into the youth juvenile system in the first place, and some of the ways to that are having open communication with your child and having clear boundaries, and then consistently discipline them, and then make sure you're just monitoring your child's friends and their activities and where they're going with like a reasonable limit. And then help them be involved in like good activities like sports or music, and then if you see troubling behavior, you should seek early help. If something happens and your child is like arrested or convicted of a crime or something, important advice to remember is regularly attend all the meetings and hearings. Continue to communicate openly and honestly with your child, and you're going to be the biggest advocate for your child's needs and rights. And it's important to educate yourself on the system and how it works. And then you should continue like encouraging your child to be involved in their hobbies, and you should build a support network with people who have experience in this. And then this is a good framework for like um kind of helping have good outcomes is the green on the bottom and worse outcomes on the top. And the good news is that family involvement in these cases usually leads to like better mental health, academic performance, and socio-emotional skills for youth, and can help have better outcomes. And there's the references.
Thank you.
Thank you.